Alright, so 3.3, dividing polynomials. You guys remember long division and synthetic division? Remember the words, vocabulary? Okay, well I'll go through a couple examples here where we do a review, but that's really what you're doing today is long division and synthetic division. And then a couple other things, but really that's the basics of what you're doing today. But there's a purpose for reviewing that for the next couple days. You're going to need to know how to find the factors. Alright, and factors are really just finding your zeros. Alright, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we do this. Alright, so here's your first problem. This is going to be x cubed plus 4x squared minus 6x plus 1 divided by x minus 1. So my first question to you is, what does this x minus 1 mean? So let me give you a simple example so that you understand what it is that you're trying to find. So if I say 48 divided by 8, what is that answer? 6, right? You don't have to write this down. So my next question to you are 6 and 8 factors for 48? Yeah. Okay. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to divide these polynomials by something so that if it does work and there's no remainder, or the remainder is 0, then this up here, this answer, quotient, and your divisor here, those are both factors. So if x minus 1 is a factor, let's just say that it is to start off, x minus 1 is a factor, isn't that a 0? When we factor a trinomial or other polynomials, aren't those the zeros that we're using? Right? Okay, so make sure you understand that factors and finding these things using synthetic division and long division is just another tool for finding zeros. Alright, so let's do this. Here's how you do this. Some of the students were struggling with this this morning. Let me talk through it and then I'll tell you formally how to do it. So what times x, remember when we were doing this, you said 6 times 8 gave me 48. So what times my x, and we only need to look at the leading value here, what times x is x cubed?
X squared.
X squared. Notice I put it above the x squared position. That kind of helps me know when I'm done at the end of my long division. So now what you do is you have to take this times this whole thing, not just the first one. So it's really x squared times x minus 1. So that's x cubed minus x squared. Okay? Now what do I do with that? Subtract. We don't know what's left. So when we do long division, we subtract to see how much is left. So I'm going to subtract this whole thing. What happens when I do that? What do I get? What is 4 minus a minus?
Plus.
Yeah. So I could just change everything if I wanted to. So 4 plus 1x squared is 5x squared. And x cubed plus the negative x cubed is 0. So that cancels off. If that first one doesn't cancel off, then you've done something wrong. Now what do I do? Yeah, drop down to minus 6x. Not the 1 yet. You said 1 or 6x? Okay. Carry this down. Now what do I do? What times x gives me 5x squared?
5x.
Okay, 5x. So let me just take this moment to explain how this works. If you take this leading term, 5x squared, and you divide it by this leading term, that will tell you what needs to go up in the next position. So 5x squared over 5x is what? 5x squared over x is 5x. That's what goes up here. So if you're unsure what to put up there, take this leading term divided by that leading term, and that will always tell you what's next. So if I multiply this through, I get 5x squared. 5x times minus 1 is minus 5x. Everybody subtract that and see if you get the same thing I get. Okay. I don't care if you change through here. However you do it, as long as you get the right answer. If you don't get the right answer, then you need to do it the way I'm doing it. So a negative 6 plus 5x is a negative x. 5 minus the 5 is, those cancel out. Who got negative x? Okay, so drop down the next thing, plus 1. Alright, so instead of just asking you what the answer is, let me show you what we're doing. The leading term, negative x, over this leading term. What is that? Negative 1. That's what goes up here. So let me ask the question. What times x gives me negative x? Well, negative 1. So that's how you can figure out what goes on top. Take the leading term, divide by the leading term here. Got it? So x cubed divided by x was x squared. 5x squared divided by x was 5x. And negative x divided by x gave me the negative 1. Okay? So subtract, multiply that out. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. Subtract that, and we get 0. So what that means is, this is a factor of that polynomial, and that's a factor, just like the 8 and the 6 were factors of 48. Alright, so we have x minus 1 and x squared plus 5x minus 1. The answer to this division problem is that, your quotient. Okay? But what I'm showing here is how we always do it. These two things are factors of that polynomial. Okay? And this is very important. We're going to be doing this a lot over the next few sections to find what the zeros are. Alright, let's use the same problem. I'll write this up here. X cubed plus 4x squared minus 6x plus 1. Okay? Synthetic division. How do I set up the synthetic division? Synthetic division. How do I set it up? Hey, I need to talk to you about the previous test when I'm done. Okay. I've been trying to talk to you ever since then. I keep forgetting because we were always doing something.
Oh,
synthetic division. How do I set up synthetic division? Does anybody remember? It's okay if you're wrong. Yeah.
Is it like that?
Yeah, we gotta have this.
And then you put the equation on the bottom or the top?
Well, we put the
Or
coefficients.
yeah, the coefficients.
And they have to be in order. Meaning, if this is cubed, the next one needs to be x squared, the next one needs to be x, the next one needs to be the constant. If there's something missing, you have to fill it in with a 0. You remember that? Okay. Now what goes out here? What goes out in front? We're going to do the same problem here. What makes this go to 0? What's your 0 in this factored form? 1. That's what goes out here. We're assuming, we're going to pretend that we didn't do this problem. We're assuming that this is a 0. So we're going to do synthetic division to find out if it's true. Alright, so this is how you do this. Drop down the first one. Now you multiply and put the answer right here. 1 times 1 is 1. Anybody remember what you do at that point?
No, add.
Add. You add them. So that's 5. 1 times 5 is?
5.
Add them. What do I get?
Negative 1.
Negative 1. 1 times negative 1 is? What do I get? 0. That's my remainder. My question to you is, what are these? Yeah. The x squared plus 5x minus 1. This leading number here is always that term with a less degree, 1 less degree. And since this is a 0, we know that x minus 1, or 1, is a 0, and x minus 1 is one of the factored forms. Okay? 3x squared plus x plus 3. That's your divisor. 3x to the fourth minus 5x cubed. Why did I put a 0 there?
To hold its spot.
Yeah, to hold that spot, there's really not an x squared in the polynomial that I was given. But I still have to have that position. Let me ask you something. How do you write the number 1009? Do I write it like this? No. How do I write it? Okay, so they're placeholders. The same thing with what we have up here. You gotta have placeholders. Alright, now you start this problem. If you forgot, what do I multiply by x squared to get 3x to the fourth? Or take 3x to the fourth divided by x squared. What do you get? 3x squared. That's what goes right here. Now take that and multiply it, distribute it through here, and subtract. Distribute the 3x squared and subtract.
I remember a lot of this last year.
Yeah, good. Good stuff.
We got some good video today. It's cooperating.
You got a new career.
And it just went crazy on me right when I said that.
First of all, did you get this expression? Should I just stay up here? Does that help? Okay, now we subtract it. 0 minus 9 is negative 9x squared. Negative 5 minus 3, negative 8x cubed. 3 minus 3 is 0. Who got that? 5 of you. That's wonderful. 25% of the student population. 0 is your x squared. We're adding like terms at this point. 0 minus 9 is negative 9, isn't it?
But when did you
Where'd
get the
you
9
get
in
the
the
9 from?
second
Oh.
row?
How did I get this?
Yeah.
3x squared times 3. I'm distributing whatever's on top, I gotta distribute through. 3x squared times 3 gives me the 9x squared.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay, so if, how did
English?
you get 3x squared? I don't understand how you, I just don't understand.
You're gonna take this leading number, this leading term, the 3x to the fourth,
Okay.
and you're gonna divide it by this leading term. Okay? Did you not do this last year?
I mean, I did, I,
Just forgot.
yeah, but I.
I'm sure you were not shown this.
I didn't really pay attention.
Okay. Alright. So now my next question is the exact same thing as what you're asking. What is the next thing I put here? So what you're going to do is you're going to take this leading term, negative 8x cubed, and you're going to divide it by that leading term. What do you get, Emily, when you take that and divide it?
What was in terms of first one?
This one and that one.
Did you like asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh, sorry.
What do you get when you do that?
Um, negative.
Yes, that's what goes right here. Now you have to take that and you have to distribute it through here, okay? You have to take that times this, negative 8x times this. So that gives me a negative 8x cubed, which is what we wanted. I forgot to drop this minus 20 down. Sorry. Okay?
front of the negative all the
You have to subtract to see what you have left, the minus sign.
time. Like in front of the negative there, on the outside.
Yeah,
Why
that's
would-
why I do it like
It's
that,
just
so
a
that you don't confuse it.
Why wouldn't you just make it negative 16x? Like,
Negative 16, what?
yeah, why wouldn't you
It's
just?
just a plus
why would
and
you-
eight.
Okay, whatever.
Don't you subtract when you do long division?
Sure.
Really? Are you sure? Okay, well. So I'm gonna do this.
Take the 6, or put 1 up, and then 6, and just put the 1 on the bottom.
The one on the bottom, this one?
No, you just subtract.
Oh, you subtract.
Alright,
So that's where this comes from. We gotta know what's left, okay?
alright.
But I put the parentheses around here, so, I mean, you gotta subtract each of these things. So if you don't, I mean, if you know how to do this, Daniel, you don't need to do it the way I'm doing it up here. As long as you're getting the right answer, I don't care. Okay, but this is just to make sure that we don't drop a sign. This had a negative on it. I didn't want somebody to look at that and say, oh, it already has a minus sign. And then they're looking at that going, well, that's negative 16x cubed. Because it's not, because you distribute that negative sign, that's when that becomes 0. Yes?
Why'd you add it on that side?
Add what?
Is that subtract?
Here?
Yeah.
It was subtraction. And I just went change. I distributed it through, just like I did right here. Okay? Alright, so what do we have? This is 4x. This is negative x squared. Did we get that? Did I do it right? Or Emily? Take the leading term. Divide by that leading term. What do I get? Huh? Well, what is something over itself? 1. So it's a negative 1. So that's what's going to go right there, negative 1. Now distribute that through. And subtract, Daniel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just distribute this through, change each side. Okay. And we're done. We've reached the last part of this. We are done at this point. So now what we have is this as a remainder. All right, in your book it's going to ask you to write this: the quotient of x plus the remainder over the divisor. It actually tells you this in your instructions that they want this answer. But your answer key does this. It shows this and then it says remainder 5x minus 2. Okay, it doesn't show it like this. I want this as your answer. So what does this mean? This is your quotient, that's your remainder, and that is your divisor. So your answer should be written like this, because I'm much smarter than the book. So that's your quotient, that's q of x. And your remainder, 5x minus 2, over the divisor. That's what I want for your answer. I mean, you check your answer key and make sure that you got your 5x minus 2. Make sure that's correct so you don't waste any of your time. But that's what I want. So this is called the J method. Makes a little J. It's the same thing like this. Watch. 15 halves. What is that as a mixed number? 7 1/2. Well, 15 divided by 2. 7. 7 1/2. 7. Your quotient. Quotient plus the remainder over your divisor. 7 1/2. That's what a mixed number is.
Math.
Yes,
So you can do like 120 and
I can. That'd be 40. Alright.
Is it really for?
Comical class. Alright, we need to get moving.
Let's not get too crazy. The camera is still rolling, folks.
Alright, how about you extend the number?
Synthetic division, everybody do this one. I'm just gonna write this out, you do the synthetic division. So that's your polynomial in division. You set up your synthetic division and see if,
Be nice to it.
I wanna know if 5 is a 0. That's what we're doing, right? When we're dividing. If your remainder is 0, then that is a factor. And if that's a factor, 5 is a 0. Everybody look up here. What that means is y is 0 when x is 5. I plug 5 in, okay? You say, well, you can't have 0 in your denominator. You're missing the point. I want to know if this is a factor. I want to know what my zeros are. Okay. Some of you are lost still. Did we get started right? What?
Did you get the 5?
Right there?
Okay.
We're wanting to know if x minus 5 is a factor of that polynomial. It's the same thing if I said this. Is 6 a factor of 48? Is it? Why is that? Because when I take 48 divided by 6, my remainder is 0.
Why would it not be negative 5?
Yeah.
Well, negative 5 minus 5 is not 0. Whoa. Let's back up. You guys are, you've not acquired why you did factoring in 9th grade or in algebra to begin with. So if I said x minus 3, x plus 2 equals 0, what was that? X squared minus x minus 6 equals y. That's where this came from. And you factored that, and then you said, well, x equals what? 3, positive 3, and negative 2. The shortcut is you change the signs. But what you're really doing is either x minus 3 equals 0, because if this is 0, 0 times whatever this is still 0. Correct? Or you said x plus 2 equals 0, because if you have this times 0, that's still going to equal 0, right? So this was the zero product rule, and then you had to solve these. So x equals positive 3. It's not that you take this and say, oh, it's the opposite of that sign. That's the shortcut. That's not mathematical. This is the mathematical reason. What makes this go to 0 is if this is positive 3, because 3 minus 3 is 0. So my question to you now is, this has to be what? If this is a factor, like these are factors of that polynomial, if this is a factor, what does x have to be for it to be equal to 0? Positive 5, that's where this comes from. Alright, finish it. Drop the 3 down, 5 times 3 is 15, add. Negative 12 plus 15 is 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Add again. 5 times 6 is 30. 31. That's your remainder. Is x minus 5 a factor? No. 6 is a factor of 48 because our remainder was 0. Our remainder here is 31. X minus 5 is not a factor. Alright, now, what would you say this answer is then? This is x cubed. What's this going to be? 3x squared plus 3x plus 6 plus 31 over, remember, the remainder over the divisor. 31 over x minus 5. We're just finding zeros, finding the factors. number 46. Factor theorem. I don't really care that there's a nice, neat theorem. What I care about is if you understand what it is we're doing. P of C equals 0. If P of C, if the polynomial is equal to 0, if y equals 0, when x is this value, right? P of C is just y. So if I plug in a value for x, whatever C is the value of x, and I get 0, that means it's a factor. Alright, so if P of C equals 0, this is not number 46. I'll say it this way anyway. Then x minus C is a factor. That's what we just got done saying. If I plug in 5 for x, and I get 0 for my remainder, then x minus 5 was a factor. That's what the factor theorem is saying. Alright? So first let's do this. Example 46. Everybody do this. Here is your polynomial. 6x to the 5th plus 10x cubed plus x plus 1. And C is, or the x value is negative 2. So before you even start, write that down. Before you start, I have a question for you. Where did the negative 2 come from? We're assuming it's a factor, so where did it come from? So the 5 came from x minus 5. Where's this negative 2 come from?
Your divisor.
The divisor, which would be
X plus 2.
x plus 2. So this came from, we're hoping that x plus 2 is a factor of that polynomial. So I'm just kind of giving it to you in multiple different ways so that when you look at something, you're like, oh, well, C is just an x value. We're not going to do long division, we're doing synthetic division. So x is negative 2. Go ahead and fill this out. What are we missing?
X squared.
You know? And x to the 4th. So we have 6, 0, x to the 4th, 10, 0, x cubed, x squared, sorry. 1 and 1. So that's 1x and that's 1. Now do it, please. Tell me what you're going to get something large. The remainder is not 0, it's a large negative. Done? Easy? Excellent. Who did not get negative 273?
271. I got negative 35, but I know.
Who got all the way to here? Okay. Lots of places to make errors, isn't it? Isn't there? Okay, this is what you just found. You don't just do this and be like, oh, it's not, the remainder is not 0, so none of this means anything. It's a stupid problem. No, you actually found some information. When x is negative 2, guess what y is?
73.
We're going to come back to this in a second. You just, if x was a 0, wouldn't this be 0 here? When x is negative 2, wouldn't y be 0? If it were a 0, but it's not. Yes?
So would the answer be like you wrote the equation right there?
Like this?
Yeah.
But they're just asking, it all depends on what they're asking in your instructions. Okay? if they tell you to write it as the q of x equals r of x over d of x, then they're asking for that. Yeah?
So we can do that instead of long division?
Yeah. Okay, so if I said divide this by this, x plus 2, you could do long division if you wanted, but you could also do synthetic division. But if I said this, x squared plus 2, you're not going to use synthetic division. What makes this go to 0? Am I going to use the square root of -2 up here? Are you? Okay, so I would not use synthetic division for this. I would use long division. Okay? Alright, we're coming back to that problem here. Alright, this is number 56. So p of x equals x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus 16x squared minus 27x plus 63. Solve for when c equals 3 and -3. What that means is p of c, p of x. Those are x values. I want to know if they're factors. So don't do synthetic division. I'm going to show you something else. Okay, just like -2 and -273, this was a coordinate. I'm really looking for this to be 0. We're saying, why can't I just plug 3 in for x and see if I get 0? Because isn't this y? Y equals this. What is y when x is 3? Everybody figure this out. If you use a calculator, don't break your fingers. Watch how easy
You know
this
that was
is.
on camera, right?
Yeah, watch how easy this is. You guys are making this too difficult. So write that down and stop and watch. You guys are too smart to be dependent on your calculators. Some of you.
Now you're making.
Some of you are just totally stupid. I'm just kidding. You're the dumbest class I've ever had.
Teacher brutality.
Hey Lexi. Here,
What is 3 to the 4th? What is 3 times 3? 9 times 3. Okay, now, do you know what 27 times 3 is?
That would be 81.
81, thank you. Alright, so that was the hard one. What is 3 times 3? Times 3? Times that 3?
That'd be
81. What's 3 times 3? 9 times 16. Okay, come on guys. 9 times 16 isn't that 4? For those of you who didn't get that, isn't 9 times 16 or 16 times 9 the same thing as 10 plus 6 times 9? Yes? Look at it. What's 9 times 10? 9 times 6? 54. What's 954? You really do not need to use calculators, guys. Come on. What's 27 times 3 again? Oh, 81. What's 81 minus 81? What's 81 plus 63? What's 80 plus 60?
That'd be 124.
Yeah, 140, and then the 1 and 3 is 144. And then you have a minus 144. Hey, we found a factor. X minus 3 is the factor. 3 is not the factor. X minus 3 is the factor of that, is one of the factors. This is extremely important because the next couple sections we need to be finding the factors. Alright, if you plug in -3, you're going to get the same 3. You're going to get 0, so you can do that on your own if you want. Last thing, real quickly. I want you to write the equation, given some information. The degree is 4. The zeros are -2, 0, 2, and 4. So I've already told you what the factors are. You just got to figure out how to get to x to the 4th. So p of x in factored form, the polynomial in factored form is going to be x plus 2, then what? What's x minus 0? X. That's why whenever you have an x out in the front, it's 0. Want to know what the zeros are? X is 0. It comes from x minus 0. And then I have x minus 2 and x minus 4. Those zeros come from the factored form. Now, you can just multiply them all the way out, and some of these you're going to have to. But some of them won't take you very long. What is this? The difference of two squares. What's x times this? Now you do FOIL or distribution, you tell me what the rest of it is real quickly. We're out of time. You can check it out. This is x to the 4th minus 4x cubed minus 4x squared plus 16x.